Hey, hello everybody. I am Kim Scheintel and I'm president of this wonderful Jewish Genealogical Society of Southwest Florida. And I welcome everybody here today. And if you look around the little boxes here, you'll notice there's one box that's got many people in it. And I'm very happy to welcome the people from the JCV in Venice. It's a synagogue in Venice, Florida, and they're starting a genealogy group. And they're very new at this. And I'm just so excited that they wanted to come and join the JGS of Southwest Florida today. So thank you all for coming. And thank you for those of you who belong to the group. And I'm hoping that more of you will want to join the JGS of Southwest Florida, because if you join, then you get to be in our family finder on our website and you get to list the surnames and places that you're researching. And I want you to know it does help. People do find relatives within our own group. And Eric Wolfgang is here. He put that all up on our website recently. It was recently updated. And I've got some more additions that I'm going to be giving him soon. But later today, we're going to be hearing from Caitlin from our program, Howard Finkel, chairman, who will be introducing her and telling us about some upcoming programs that we have. But before we do that, I have a little commercial that I'd like you to listen to about JewishGen. I'm going to give the commercial, and I'm going to briefly tell you, very briefly, about two ways that JewishGen helped me, and it will excite you enough that I think you're going to want to start pursuing and seeing what JewishGen has to offer. The first one I wanted to tell you about was the JewishGen Family Finder. I often use it, and I'll give you one quick example. One day in 2011, I decided to write to everybody who was chasing the TAUB line, TAUB. And one of the people that I wrote to in 2011 was only 16 years old. His name was Alec Ferretti. And I told him that I was tracing TAUB and I was, not too successful doing it. Well, by the end of the day, he told me exactly how we were related and showed me how he could get our family traced back to the late 1600s. I can't say enough about Alec. And he will be speaking for us in March. And I'm so proud that I can say he's my cousin. He's a professional genealogist. He spoke for us last year. So that's one point I wanted to tell you about JewishGen. And the other one is I took one of the education classes that JewishGen has to offer. It was by Nancy Holden and Barbara Rice. And because of their outstanding guidance in this course that I took on JewishGen, where they gave me one-to-one help, I was able to find out the names of two of my great, great, great grandparents, all thanks to that course that I took. So if those two things don't convince you about how great JewishGen is, just wait, because Caitlin will definitely have you convinced by the time she's done speaking. So without further ado, I am going to call on Howard Finkel to tell you about our upcoming programs and to introduce Caitlin.
Thank you, Kim, and welcome everyone. Welcome back. This is our first program of the season, and I think we have a pretty good lineup of programs for the year. On December 21st, and this will be in person at the theater room at the Aviva Kobernick Senior Center. We will have a panel of presenters from our group. Mark Silverstein, Abe Liederman, Lois Goodman, Doug Cohen. They're going to talk about their most memorable ancestor. On January the 18th, and that will also be in person at Aviva Kobernick, we're going to have a presentation from some folks from the Sarasota Public Library. Renee DiPalato, who is the director of Sarasota County Libraries and Historical Resources, and Josh Goodman, manager of Sarasota County History Center, and they're going to tell us about exciting new programs and services from Sarasota County Libraries and the historical resources. On February the 15th, this will also be in person at Aviva Kobernick. Peggy Jude, whom we heard from last year, she did a wonderful program on using AI in genealogy, and she's going to update that program and tell us again what's new in artificial intelligence. On March the 15th, and this will be a Zoom program, and you'll need to get the link uh, from Kim. Alec Ferretti, as she indicated, Alec Ferretti will be doing a program on something that's very, very on the of interest lately in terms of birthright citizenship. His topic will be Born in the USA or Not, the Evolution of Children's Citizenship. And I think you'll find that a real program that's very relevant to today's news. On April the 19th, our last program of the season, it will be back to Aviva Kobernik, and it will be Vivian Calvaria, and her program will be My Name Is Not Rivka. I think that's a very interesting story that she has, and I think you'll like it very much. Today's presenter is Caitlin Hollander Waas. She is the chief genealogist at JewishGen, where she also serves as a genealogy consultant at the Peter and Mary Calico Jewish Genealogical Center, located in the Museum of Jewish Heritage, a living memorial to the Holocaust. A professional genealogist for over a decade, she holds a degree in anthropology with additional certificates in Jewish studies and Holocaust and genocide studies. She has testified as a court expert witness in Jewish genealogy globally, and her work has been featured in Family Tree magazine, the Times of Israel, and the South Florida Sun Sentinel, among other publications. Caitlin, thank you for being with us, and you have the floor.
All right, so let me get this PowerPoint. Oh, I need to be able to put my PowerPoint up.
Just one moment. Sorry. Okay.
Give me one moment. Okay. And can we all see my slides?
Yes.
Perfect. Wonderful. Fabulous. So what's new at JewishGen? Hi, I'm Caitlin Hollander Waas. As I mentioned, as was mentioned, I'm JewishGen's chief genealogist. And this is essentially a nice roundup of what is new at JewishGen for this year. So topics I'm going to cover, because I like to have an agenda, so it stops me from getting a little off topic. New staff, because one of the things that's new at JewishGen is me and my position and what am I doing. Records updates, some new search tools, which I think that a number of you will be very interested in. Yizkor book updates, the Calico Center, and some more that's upcoming. So we'll run right into this. So JewishGen, as many of you may or may not know, is associated with the Museum of Jewish Heritage, which is in New York City. We're down in Battery Park, and we've been associated with the museum since, I believe, 2005. And they've taken a greater role in administering it lately. So these are the people who are affiliated out of the museum with JewishGen. So specifically, I want to mention the three of us who work 100% of the time with JewishGen, which is going to be Dr. Paul Rudensky, who is the new Senior Director of the Peter and Carrie Calico Genealogy Center. He is also the current Director of JewishGen. Karen Franklin, who many of you probably know, who is JewishGen's new Director of Outreach, and then myself, who is JewishGen's Chief Genealogist. And just a quick background on each of us. Paul he holds a PhD in Jewish history from the Jewish Theological Seminary and a master's in history from Columbia. He's an incredible asset. He was working with the education department at the museum for a lengthy amount of time, working with professional development, interfaith activities, and other things. It's a huge deal that we have him working with us because he really is helping us push a lot of our educational programs and a lot of the access to some really interesting stuff. We also have Karen Franklin. Many of you probably know her. She is the Director of Outreach. She's also a Director of Family Research at Leo Beck. She's been in the genealogy world for forever and is absolutely incredible. I can't say enough good things about Karen. And then there's myself, and Howard gave me that lovely introduction. But essentially, I'm here to do genealogy work and to work with everybody on this, to upload new data, speaking engagements, educate people on how to utilize JewishGen to their best ability, and really just be here as a resource and sort of work to bring what I call the dash. So the dash to life. And what the dash is essentially is if you're looking at a family tree or at a grave and you have the dates of somebody's life, you have that birth date and the death date. And then you have everything that matters is in between in that dash. My job essentially is to help bring that dash to life, whether that's through finding new methods of bringing history to life, bringing the context alive, bringing new records into JewishGen. Whatever it is, that's essentially what my job is as the chief genealogist. So speaking of new records, just this last year, we've brought in new records for South Africa, Ukraine, Romania, Subcarpathia, the US, Belarus, the Austria-Czech, Jauber, which is our Jewish burial database, Latvia, and a ton more. The South African records actually just dropped on Wednesday last, so I figured I would hit those first. It's over 7,500 new records for Jews in South Africa. I always sort of diverge here and say if you have Litvak heritage, especially, South African records may be of use to you, even if your direct family didn't go there. South Africa is one of those places that has a massive amount of Lithuanian Jews migrating there. So you may end up identifying cousins that you never knew about. This includes military lists. The military list also includes some UK records. So these are from the World War I and II. They're from the Boer Wars. And they're also records of South Africans who served in the military in Israel. This includes business lists. These business lists include the entire region of Southern Africa, as well as South Africa itself, and biographical records. It's an incredible resource. I highly recommend checking it out. And we have an announcement on the site of exactly what databases were included in this drop. But it is a fairly significant segment of South African Jewish records that have never before been available. We have the Ukrainian records, which I know a number of you are probably familiar with the massive push we're doing right now to get these records from Ukraine online. As of November, we have over 4.2 million individual records from Ukraine. That's over 74,000 in October to November alone. We're publishing these updates monthly. We are constantly scanning, indexing, and making these freely and publicly available because these records are, of course, at massive risk. We're constantly seeing bombings get closer to these archives, and it's a major deal because so much of the Jewish experience was in what is now Ukraine, whether they were Austro-Hungarian, whether they were from the Russian Empire. There's just an incredible amount of records that have ended up there. And getting this work done has been a massive push on our part, and we're doing it at an unprecedented rate. And the translations are being done and the indexing is being done at this rate pretty much every single month. Romania, we're actually running into some new records. We have over 10,000 new indexed records. So these are specifically the full record being indexed. So it tells you, if it's a birth record, name of the child, what's the house number, where are the parents from, all of that information. This includes Romanian civil records, records from Bukovina, and census records. And these go into the early 20th century. We have over 1,200 new detailed index entries as well. And this is for all over Romania. It could be for Balti, it could be for Iaj, and on top of this, we're working currently on a cemetery project that is going to be absolutely massive once we get this work done, including photographing every grave in Iaj and Bucharest. This is over 1 million graves. Photographing and indexing and making them freely available for the first time ever in history. Subcarpathia, which also is going to fall once again within Ukraine. These are records that are highly, highly at risk. And these are records that are relevant to so much of Jewish history. If you have ancestors who say they're from Munkac, that's Subcarpathia. And everybody has somebody that wandered to Munkac at some point. Just this last year, we have 77,000 new records that are indexed online. That's over 417,000 records total. Again, these records are highly at risk. There was actually very recently a bomb that fell very concerningly close to the Munkac archive. We're updating these records, and these records go into the 20th century, and especially because Subcarpathian Jewry was so decimated during the Holocaust, these later records are especially essential. On top of that, one of the best and biggest new record sets, including for, discoveries I've found for my own family recently, are these regional family lists. It's not just in Subcarpathia. These can be people who have left Subcarpathia, and it gives you the whole family list. It's very similar to a German family list. If you've ever encountered these, you're going to get the parents' names. When did they marry? When did all the household members die? When did they move out? They're incredibly useful, and they're not just, again, for Subcarpathia. I've seen Galicianer families end up in these lists. I've seen families from Hungary end up in these lists. I had a Budapest family that I ran into in one of these lists. It's an incredible resource, and I highly, highly, highly recommend checking them out. In general, I sort of have like a list of searches that I tend to run on JewishGen fairly frequently, just because we are uploading, as you can tell, new things constantly. American records, we now have the Schul records that have over 1,500 entries from the United States, Canada, and the Caribbean. We're uploading records from the Houston Jewish Voice Index. We're uploading the Cleveland obituaries. And of course, we're uploading a absolute ton of cemetery records constantly. There are a lot of very big projects coming out of the American division. I'll touch on them a little bit later. But we're seeing a large number of these American records end up on our website. We're looking at doing some partnerships with specifically resources out of the American South, where a lot of early Jews in the US ended up. And we're hoping to have a lot more coming out soon. Belarus is huge, partially because Belarus has traditionally been very difficult to access. And after a bit of a lull, we are starting to get new records. Again, in the last year, we're looking at 6,200 new records. On top of this, we're looking at records that we have an additional 4,200 revision lists and family lists, 16,000 birth records, and 4,000 death records. So that's going to make up that 62,000. It's a massive number of records, especially when you're looking at records that pertain to a large percentage of Ashkenazi Jewry, and they're coming out of a region that has been inaccessible for some time. And these records, again, range from 1834 to 1917. These, again, personally, these legitimately just helped me with a breakthrough on my ghost of a great-great-great-grandfather who had the wonderful helpfulness of having the utterly unique name of Solomon Rosenbaum, who I'm sure we've all encountered those. Austria Czech, we are looking at this point, weekly updates to the collection of vital records. I don't know if any of you have looked at the Vienna records especially, but what is going on right now is we're actually re-indexing and expanding those indexes. So now instead of just saying, oh, these are the parents of this child, it's these are the parents of this child. Here are those parents' parents. Here's where everybody's from. Here's how old they are. Here's the date they got married. The marriage records are being expanded, and the death records are being expanded. Like I said, these are literally being updated every week. I put a new set of them online on Friday. So these are every single constant updates, births, marriages, death announcements, deaths. The obituaries are being updated on our website, and those do link to the original obituaries, which will give you the names of surviving family members in many cases. And these are extending over centuries. Similarly, the Prague conscription database, it doesn't just pertain to Prague. We're seeing Vienna families end up in there. We're seeing them extend over a good amount of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Again, I've run into Galicianer families for whatever reason have ended up in this Prague conscription database. And every single day, these new uploads are also kind of changing our idea of who ends up in these databases and who ends up in these record sets. If anybody's ever spent a good amount of time in an archive, it's almost inevitable that you end up with a record that it's sort of a, what are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here, but you are here, and why are you here? And we're starting to see that, where we're seeing records that we didn't necessarily even know still existed show up in other record sets. Jalber, which is the Jewish, the burial registry, we're looking at over 7 million burials total at this point. This also includes pretty much one of the greatest things that we've put up in a it's one of the coolest things that we've put up on the web. It's in a major Israeli data set. In partnership with MyHeritage, we have actually officially indexed every grave in Israel. So think about that for a second. It's a lot of graves, and it's an incredible undertaking, especially because we had to work with the sounds. And so it can actually be searched phonetically in a number of different ways. I highly, highly, highly recommend looking at that. And we do have a number of more graves coming this year. I believe it's a little bit, I think it's up in the 6 figures at this point, the number of graves that we have coming in later this year. Similarly, Latvia is doing a ton right now. We have over 9,000 Riga birth records being translated. It's 19th century. 2,000 internal passport entries translated. Those are especially useful because if you have this information from the internal passport entry, you can pull the original internal passport. And for Latvia, most of those have photographs. I've had many, many situations in which I've been sitting down with somebody who has no idea what their grandparent looked like. And then we're actually able to find a photograph of them on their internal passport. Those passport issuance books, the info in them, it can be absolutely invaluable when you're doing family research in the region. So now I'm going to move on to some search tools. And I'm going to start out with search tools from JewishGen that you know. Search tools on JewishGen that you might know. And then some that you definitely don't because they are brand new. And these are some of the absolute coolest search tools, and I have been having quite a lot of fun with them, actually. So there's the ones we know. The exact spelling starts with, sounds like, contains, fuzzy, fuzzy, or fuzziest. So we know this. Except did you know that if you put in an exact spelling, it also will give you synonyms? So let's say I'm looking for a Yankel, but he could be Jacob, he could be Jack, it could be a couple of different spellings of Jack, or Yankel, Jacob. It's going to give me all those options. Let's say I'm looking for a Joseph. It's going to give me Yos, Yosel, Yosela, Joe. So you're going to not only get the name, but you're also going to get the synonyms. You run into similar with towns, by the way. So I highly, highly, highly recommend sort of revisiting the exact spellings. Starts with, it's self-explanatory, fuzzy, fuzzy, or fuzziest. A lot of people don't use this one because it doesn't seem to make any sense, and I don't think that the title is that self-explanatory. I always describe it as sort of my way around when the original record was written by somebody who had no business ever picking up a pen and may not have even known the language they were trying to write in. And sometimes I doubt if they ever had seen a piece of paper or a pen in their entire life, or if they could see, because we've all run into that handwriting before. And the indexer has done their best, but it was impossible to read. And the person who wrote it probably also couldn't have read it. So my husband has a name in his family, Multi-honor, and it can be spelled a million different ways. On top of that, it's in Russian, so then it can be transliterated multiple different ways. Not all these ways get picked up by the phonetics. Not all these ways get picked up by the soundex. So giving it a little bit fuzzier, say, okay, you might not pick it up, but fuzzier and fuzziest is going to pick up that last version I put up there, the Meltioner, even if sounds like in phonetic picks up those first three. Sounds like, similar sounding names, and contains is going to be anywhere in the name. Those two are self-explanatory. You probably all know this. This is pretty standard. Now for the stuff you might not know. I hope you know it, but you might not. The or and the and. If you put a comma into our search, that's an or. So I put Schwartz, Weiss. That's or. I'm looking for a record with Schwartz or Weiss. Space is and. Schwartz, Weiss. Maybe I'm looking for a marriage of someone Schwartz to someone Weiss. That's my and. There's a mention of it on our site. It's not super visible. It's hugely useful, especially when you're trying to find people who are on records where there's multiple families interacting. And it's also very useful, especially with the Galizianers, where you're dealing with, well, they might be this name, or they might be that name, or they might be great-grandma's name, or we're not really sure what surname we're using today. And also when you have multiple first names somebody could be using. Now for the things you may not know. Let's talk about some brackets. Let's say that I'm looking for somebody with the last name Fish. If I'm searching phonetic or sounds like, it's going to come up Vice, V-I-S-Z is also going to come up. I'm not looking for that family. I want the fish family. So, but I don't want exactly spelled like F-I-S-C-H because it could be F-I-Z, it could be F-I-S-H, could be a bunch of different spellings. So I put that F into brackets. And when it's in brackets, that tells our search engine on JewishGen for a phonetic or a sounds like search, that letter has to be included. So I'm going to get all of these different spellings, but they all have to begin with the letter F. And so that's going to rule out a lot of these completely irrelevant search results that I know for sure aren't going to be part of it. Similarly, and probably most usefully and most recently, we've added wildcards. So let's say you have some very bad handwriting on a marriage record because that same clerk who should have never picked up a pen in their life and you're not sure why they went into that career wrote down the marriage. Great. Put exactly like, and then we're going to add some asterisks where the name might be messed up today, where somebody wrote completely illegibly because maybe their pen burst ink everywhere, or maybe just they should not have been writing in the first place. You're going to put in those asterisks. It's similar to how you use them on Family Search. You can also utilize them on Ancestry if you don't know. And it's going to give you a lot more options. I really like it, especially mentioning on the marriage record. If I'm dealing with a marriage record from the States and it's clear that the person whose parent it is has some idea of what their parent's name was, but we're also playing telephone here and it's not being written down the way it should be, I'll play around with the wildcards and see what I can find. So if I can recognize there's an S and a P and an L and a G at the end, but I don't know if it's spelling or spurling or spilling, I'll do it like this. It's absolutely invaluable, and I've been finding new to me records in old data sets that I've never seen before because I'm sort of allowing for the idea of, okay, this person definitely had terrible handwriting that couldn't be read by any living person. So let's move on to the YISCOR book updates. YISCOR books, and if you haven't utilized them, they're absolutely invaluable. Again, I talk a lot about context. YISCOR books are really going to be one of the primary ways that you can get that sort of context. Even if your family didn't have that connection to the Holocaust, if they, came to the US in 1905, 1888, the YISCOR book is still going to give you a lot of context on what that town was like before the Holocaust. I always describe it as a eulogy for the town, and like a eulogy, it talks about the life. I once had a gentleman in the Genealogy Center who were looking at the YISCOR book for his ancestral town. His family had come here in 1905, okay, around then. And there's a mention in one of the chapters, oh, we had this wonderful teacher. And this teacher, he was young and he was a lot of fun and he was very nice to us. And he didn't beat us. And instead, even though he didn't make much money, he would have his wife make us candies. And whenever a child got a question right, he would give us a candy. And we liked him and we were very sad when he moved to America. That was the man sitting next to me's great-grandfather. So even though his family had come to America so long before the Holocaust, his family was still memorialized in this book in a way that was not something that you could necessarily get from a record. There's no record out there that says, oh yeah, by the way, your great-grandmother made candy for your great-grandfather's students. That's not going to be written down on a record necessarily. I always tell people, look through them. It's going to give you a lot more of that context. There's 2 new books that are available for purchase on our site. But we're also constantly updating these translations. There's 21 books updated in October. We're regularly updating about 20 a month. And we just completed 25 translation projects last year. We've added a bunch of new projects. I know as of this summer, we'd added 16 new book projects. I believe we've added a number more since. And we're completing these translations at really a record pace, which is in and of itself a very big deal, as most of them are in Hebrew, Yiddish, some of them are German, some of them are in Polish, Hungarian. I've been running into a lot in Russian. And we're really making some incredible strides on translating these, as well as translating a number of memorial books that were put together after pogroms, which is something that we're beginning to work on as well. And those are going to trace back a little bit further. But again, I highly, highly, highly recommend looking at these, even if your family had left. So I mentioned previously, I think when we were all sort of talking beforehand, the Calico Center. That's on site. I'm actually physically sitting in my office in the center at this moment. The genealogy assistance from JewishGen experts. If you happen to be in New York City, I don't usually include this in my talks for places that aren't out of New York because it can be irritating as somebody who did not grow up here to have everything be very New York centric. But also having grown up in Florida, I know that the New York-Florida connection is very, very, very close. I was joking earlier that I did it backwards. I was born in Florida, moved to New York. But yeah, we have on-site genealogy assistants. We're open Wednesday, Thursdays, and Sundays. Send us an email. We can set something up. Come visit us. And we're happy to help, even if it's just a question on like, how do I use the website better? We're happy to help. And we're also happy to help and sort of sit down and break through a brick wall. So I talked about, what's new. Okay, great. We have lots of new things. What's coming? We have more new record sets. We have new research divisions. We have new search tools. We have education programs, and we have more lectures coming. So these are just some of the areas we have record sets coming in. And yes, you read that right. We do have Greek and Turkish record sets coming in. I actually have a large number of Turkish notary records that are sitting, probably going to be uploaded in the next month or so. We have a number of Ottoman Empire records that have been coming in. We just uploaded actually a number of Ottoman census records over the summer. So these are huge, huge deal for the Sephardic community. We have quite a lot of more records coming out of Germany. We have a ton more records coming out of Ukraine. I mentioned before the Romanian Cemetery Project. We have a number of Russian records that are coming in particular conscription databases, which can be, again, completely invaluable. A number of the conversion databases, so Jews who converted out after being conscripted. We have a lot of French records coming in, and we have some really exciting work coming in with the French. We have a lot more Holocaust records coming in, including a number of interwar records from regions that don't typically have this sort of record. So everything from attendance lists at yeshivot. So there's a region in Galicia, my own family's from there, where there were a number of yeshivas. There aren't many survivors from this region, and there aren't many vital records available. However, we have the school lists. And so it's giving us a whole new perspective and a whole new level of context because these school records tell you who the person's parents are. We have a large number of Bessarabian records coming in. I mentioned earlier we have a massive number of cemetery records coming in, American records, and we have a ton more coming in out of Israel. So everything from Ottoman period, British Mandate period, and the modern state, we have more records coming in. And finally, we have more coming in for the memorial plaques database, which does often get lumped in with Jauber, but it will have a lot that doesn't necessarily correlate to a current burial place, as you do see a number of them created specifically for family who were killed in the Holocaust. So we have some upcoming educational programs. I know Kim mentioned our education programs. We have our Fundamentals 1 coming up in January. We also have a program on sharing your stories, on writing up your stories. We have Fundamentals 2 in February and Fundamentals 3 in March. And these are all out of our education department. Go on our website, look at the education offerings. I know there's also a large number of on-demand educational offerings, including genealogy help over distance. I highly recommend checking them out. They are absolutely incredible in our education department. I cannot say enough good things about them. Yeah. I actually started out at one of the early years of the education department taking the original Fundamentals 1 class. It's an incredible, incredible resource, and I cannot say enough good things about our fantastic people in that department. So yeah, we have a number of new lectures coming in as well. We announce those regularly on our Facebook. We send them out via email. Contact us too. I always tell people contact us, contact us, contact us. We like to help. We have people to answer questions. Contact us. So yeah, that is essentially what is new at this current moment. And I am open for questions because I'm sure that there are many. Let me stop sharing.
If you have a question, you can unmute yourself and you can ask the question. I see Barbara has her hand raised. Barbara, you want to unmute yourself?
Just one minute.
Sure. Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, on your project taking photographs of graves, are you going back to the individual towns to see what is left of the actual graves?
So we actually have an ongoing project to do that.
So I'm thinking of Shimshal, surprise.
Yes. We have ongoing projects to do all of that, and to go back through and look at. So if you go to your town page on our website, so if you go to the communities database, we'll have a note about anything that we're doing with the cemetery projects. Otherwise, I would go under research on our website to the Cemetery Discovery Project. And that's the project where we're trying to find more of these cemeteries. But no, we're constantly actively doing that. We also do work with different European groups that are helping uncover these cemeteries. And
When
we're
you say-
pulling from the historic records as well. So for example, I have ancestors who were in a cemetery that was in Germany that was destroyed. And there's a book from the 20s that recorded all the inscriptions. And so we're actually using that sort of thing as a resource as well, using different academic projects, all sorts of things.
Is it going to be possible to actually find the gravestones, or were they chopped up or put into walls?
That depends on the town. It's very, very, very town dependent. Some cities have miraculously intact cemeteries. Some cities have nothing. It's very, very location dependent. Okay, I see a hand in the room with lots of tables in Venice.
Oh, Kathy, no.
Do I? Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought I did. It was tiny.
But now you do. So, the question is, how are you getting, records from the Ukraine now with what's going on there? And there's a huge population of Jews that come out of which is now the Ukraine, which may have been Russia or other countries.
So we have a team actively scanning. We're working with people on site in Ukraine, actively scanning documents, and we're scanning hundreds of thousands of documents a month.
What about grave sites in Ukraine?
So it depends on the location, but a number of those have been done, especially ones relating to Hasidic sites of pilgrimage. But in sites that we can do the photography, Ukraine can be a little hit or miss though with Jewish cemeteries because the Soviets destroyed a large number of them. A large number of them were turned into parks or paved over. But we are doing what we can to get those. Right now, the biggest thing is the records acquisition because paper is flammable and there are no other copies of these. Okay.
Caitlin, you may have already answered this question. I missed it, but you were talking about the gravestone project. So if I go into JewishGen, search for a name, is that going to become part of the results of my search, or does that require going to a different
as long as you
place?
search it on the full search, or you can search it specifically under cemetery topical, or you can also search it based on the location. So if I'm looking for specifically, we'll say Laubstein in Warsaw, which is one of my lines, I can either search just everything Laubstein, Poland. I can search Laubstein in graves. And all of those will filter out any results that are relevant to me. One thing also I don't see done much, and I always recommend doing this, especially because as the person who's uploading them now, it's a big deal. When you go through a record set on JewishGen, you'll see the title of that record set's going to be at the top. That's a hyperlink. Click it. It's going to tell you where those records are held, if those records are available online, or if there's somebody for you to email to get a copy of the records. It's incredibly useful. Sometimes it'll even redirect you to the website that holds the original images, and there's always, always, always more on the original. So, and even if there isn't more information, sometimes it's worth it just to see your ancestor's signature. I get sentimental about that, especially. So always, always, always click through, click the title of the record set, see what else is available.
Alan Geller?
Yes, I'd like to say that over 5 years ago, I think Mr. Richard Warben, I believe it was JewishGen, he helped me with my family. You talked about fishmen, on my grandmother's side. So what kind of confused me, of course, we had some in the Workman Circle Cemetery that were FISH and FISCH. And what happened, my great grandfather, his brother spelled it differently when they came over. So we had a whole group of fishermen's FISHMAN, and I've discovered a lot of cousins. He actually helped me. I just want to say that he actually got me to know the other side of the fishermen's, but also that we were connected with the Workman Circle, what do you call, cemetery special lots in Queens, New York.
Cool.
But he was very helpful. I just wanted to say that
It's-
JewishGen, was very good to me.
and I always tell people, use the discussion groups, use the family finders, reach out to people. I've met a lot of people that I am related to that have helped me sort of reconstruct my family history that way myself. And actually on the spelling note, I'll tell a quick story actually I have one non-Jewish grandparent, my grandfather, and one of those lines from his family is Italian. And he actually knew this story firsthand, is that my great-great-grandfather Niccolo De Martino and his brother Rocco come to America. They each have a large family, as Italians tend to do, and the mail started getting mixed up because they lived on the same street. And so Rocco turned to Nick and said, you have to drop the O at the end of your name. You're the younger brother. You have to do it like this. And he did. And so then half the mail went to the DeMartin family and half the mail went to the DeMartino family. And so the two branches of the family split in name. And I've heard variations of this from many, many families, even very recent variations on this, funnily enough. So sometimes it can also be an intentional thing because the mail got mixed up, which I always find entertaining when it's something that practical. I see the Giltmans have their hand raised.
Hi, Caitlin. We're Flo and Larry from Estero, Florida.
Hi.
Thank you so much for that informative presentation. Two things. One, I'm very pleased to hear that the Ukraine is opening up their records. That's where most of my family comes from. It's been, when I started researching, it was really closed, just closed. And now, gradually they're leaking it out. So I hope we get everything before it's destroyed. I have a question for you now. I've been using the JewishGen website, for a few years, but I am definitely not proficient with it. Let's put it that way. I tend to, frankly, I kind of get lost in there sometimes. I've been a member, I log in and I'm listed as a researcher and so forth. And I have done some things on there, but I do get kind of lost with the website. Now, I'm sure it's me,
No, it's not. I promise it's not you.
So I really, really want to become more proficient at it. Can you give us some suggestions on the best way to do that? I don't know where you're located, but I mean, I'd love to have a one-on-one with you, but that's not.
So it's I know we offer our JewishGen, one of our JewishGen fundamentals classes is like legitimately using the website, which can be frustrating. We also do give lectures on JewishGen 101, or basically using the JewishGen website. There are workshops that we give out of our lecture series as well. If you sign up for our emails, those do come. And also if you send an email saying, hey, I'd really like to see this, we do listen to those. We like those emails a lot because it gives us ideas. On top of that, a good amount of it's practice. I always joke that I learned how to use it by trying to break it and trying to figure out what it wouldn't do, and throwing things at it until something stuck. We're also hopefully very, very soon, as in within the next few months, working on making a transition in the user interface to make it more usable and more user-friendly, because you said it was probably you. It's not. I promise you it is not just you. I have been using this website since,
thank you.
as I tell people, I've been using this website since I was too young to have my own email address and was using my parents' internetjunction.net, ij.net email address. So it's one of those wonderful things where I completely empathize. Trust me, it's not the most user friendly at all times. Oh, I see a question from the room. With lots of people. Yes.
Is there a charge for any of the services, or are we to donate to the JewishGen, or how does that work financially?
So we're a nonprofit. So donate to JewishGen on our website. Please donate. We like donations. Donations are great as a nonprofit, especially somebody employed by a nonprofit. I like donations. Donations are great, but they're also, they're what keeps the lights on. They're what keep the servers running. They're what keep us scanning systems to Ukraine to actually scan these things on state-of-the-art scanners. They're what keeps us paying people to photograph graves, what keeps us paying translators, and really working on acquiring the rights to these records. So we do have a donate option on our website. Please donate. Our education programs do have a fee. So because those are classes that go over several weeks, they do have a cost. And our lectures, I believe that there's a optional donation. And then if you visit in person, the museum is $18. Last I checked, it's $18, except Thursday nights when it's free. I see another hand.
Hi, can you hear me all the way back here?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So you mentioned the fundamentals 1, 2, and 3, and you gave a series of dates for that. Are those ongoing classes? Is that something I can provide for this group somehow?
So those are ongoing classes. I would reach out to the education department. I can give you their information if you would like me to send that over to you, or I know it's on our website as well. If you go onto it under Learn, it'll direct you over to the education department.
What was that? Go over to what?
Over to jewishgen.org/education.
Okay, education.
And they're fantastic. They are, like, seriously, many, we're talking over almost 20 years. I don't know, it'd be about 20 years ago. I took one of my first genealogy classes out of them. So they are fantastic.
So how does JewishGen, your database, relate to like Heritage or Ancestry.com?
So we do share some data with them, just because we do partnerships with them where we do data sharing. But we have separate data sets. It's a different data. It's different websites. You'll find different data. If I want, to look at images of the 1921 UK census, for a long time, it was only available on Find My Past. Or if I want to read, if I'm looking for the images of documents from the Waas ghetto, I'm going to be looking at the USHMM, the Holocaust Memorial Museum's website. Different websites have different data sets. And in our case, we have the largest set of Jewish records on the internet. We're also the oldest resource for Jewish genealogy on the internet. We've been around since 1987, actually, which is something that we're really very proud of, because we go back to, the early days of a Usenet board, as opposed to coming out of really the .com boom. So yeah. I see Eric has a question.
Yeah. Hi. I've been using JewishGen quite a bit. One thing you didn't mention, I just want to mention to other people because I use it all the time, is the Shtetl Finder, which is just super useful when you get
Communities
the
database now is what it's called. That's why
okay.
that was what it was. Because there's a lot of places included that aren't Shtetlach. They're, Larissa, Salonika. They're not,
True.
Or Hamburg.
Yeah, but it's super useful. I just wanted to say thank you for doing that and all the other stuff. One thing that I often want to do, and I figure out how to do it, is I'll do a search and I'll pull up, say, Ukrainian revision list from some town with a last name. What I'd like to do is export all that to a table, to a spreadsheet or something, so I can do some post filtering on it. Is there any thought on adding that kind of capability?
There is, but also email. Honestly, send us emails with recommendations or stuff you'd like. Send me an email personally. I'm serious. My email is my first Hollander@jewishgen.org.
Okay.
Email me. Please send me emails. I like suggestions, especially as we're working on the website, because like I said, I want it to be more user friendly too. Because as somebody
Okay.
who, the communities
Thank you.
database is amazing. We're working on especially expanding it. I tell people, and it's completely true because I can see how often I'm there. I use it probably 10, 15 times a day minimum. I think I probably have 6 or 7 tabs of it open on my computer right now. It's absolutely invaluable. It should be your first stop once you have the name of a town, or even the half remembered sound of the name of a town. You can search it phonetically. You can search it, as I was saying before, with those wildcards. You can use the exact, search it, see where this town was, see about the history of the town. It will link you to other resources, and you can use those to follow up and fill in, what I keep referring to, what I call the dash, that empty space that really is the meat of somebody's life.
Hey, Lena, this might be another one of those that you touched on. I don't think you went into it in any great length, but maybe talk a little bit about Belarus and Russia.
So we are slowly getting records out of both of these places. Some of these records are records that have, through the magic of records, appeared places that are not necessarily Belarus or Russia. Sometimes records have a interesting habit of doing so. By that I mean sometimes records from, we'll say, Rhodes end up in Jerusalem, or sometimes records from Vilna end up in some guy's attic in Boston, which did happen recently, by the way. They did find a whole bunch of birth books from the Jewish community of Vilnius in a man's attic in Boston. How did they end up there? Nobody knows. But so a lot of these records are turning up because they were brought out or because copies were made and then taken out. There's a number of them that we're getting actually out of the Central Archive for the History of the Jewish People in Jerusalem. So it really does depend, but we do have a lot ongoing. We also are working with a group of Jewish archivists in Belarus specifically that do a good amount of this work. But the Russian records in particular are coming out of pretty much exclusively out of things that were brought out of Russia, sometimes even brought out of the Russian Empire, and then were being indexed and digitized for the first time. In some cases, you'll actually see, and this is something that we have donors who've done this that I cannot say enough good things about them, people that have done this for us. Occasionally you'll see at these different heritage auctions, not even heritage auctions, just art auctions or book auctions, something like a bris book going up for auction. And it will be some rabbis, 40 years, some moils, 40 years of male births and brises for a town that no longer exists. And it will include details about the family. And it can, and it typically does, pass into the hands of a private collector, and then it will never see the light of day. But sometimes we have a couple of people who have the means and this is their thing. And I love these people, I really do. And I wish that I could also do this, but I sadly cannot. Who will actually go and bid on these things and outbid other people and get this book and then bring it to us and be like, here's this. I know that's how we ended up with a number of the Rostov-on-Don marriages, for example, out of Russia, because the synagogue book, probably during the revolution, honestly, vanished to somebody's private collection. Sometimes these books were looted by Nazis from a town that no longer has any Jewish population. Community's gone. This looted book has changed hands a million times. Sometimes they ended up in the possession of, like the book in Boston, the best they can decide that happened with this book of birth records out of Lithuania that ended up in this man in Boston's attic. He had been in the military. They think that somebody may have handed it off to him because he was Jewish and it was in Hebrew. Sometimes it's just that simple. A lot of these books, though, have ended up in private collectors, and we're trying to get them, or at least trying to get the collector to send us copies. And
so Russia, for example, are there any official avenues that you guys can?
no, really not with the embargoes, which is very frustrating. For example, I have $800 that I paid them before the wars that were going to get me some, like me personally, some imperial military records that I really, really wanted, but that money is gone because you can't do business with the Russian government right now for obvious reasons. Again, occasionally private citizens will approach us and be like, hey, I live in Tel Aviv now, and here's all these things that I got copies of somehow. And cool, we're okay with that. Like, give us your index. We like indexes, but you know, it's if we're looking at a case of we can't legally do business directly with them because we're, you know, US based 501c3, it's turns into an embargoes issue. Right? Or rather a sanctions issue, not embargo. Sanction was the word I was looking for. Is there anyone else? Happy to answer general questions too. And like I said too, if you have any questions, comments, recommendations, email us either at the general, you know, the info@jewishgen.org, or feel free to email me directly. I like emails. I really do. I tell people this all the time. I really like emails. Email me. I will do my best to get back to you quickly, but I will get back to you. Yeah.
And Caitlin, we're going to post this on our website, but I want you to try to come to our next Zoom meeting in March if you can, when Alec will be speaking.
I'll
So
try.
if you're available, we'd love to have you come back.
I'll enjoy it. I definitely will. And
Thank you so much.
and especially as somebody originally from Southwest Florida, it's a treat to be here. It really is. I don't know if y'all heard me earlier, but I'm second generation Floridian. I was born and raised in Tampa, and my husband went to college in Sarasota. So lots of ties to the area. My mother was born and raised in Broward County, so really my grandmother came down to Florida at 4 months old. So really almost third generation Floridian, which is not too common. But
Thank you very much, Caitlin. This was very, very informative.
I'm happy to. And like I said, if anybody has any questions, feel free to shoot me an email. I'm always happy to.
Loves emails.
Is it C period Hollander or
Just C Hollander? Just C Hollander.
Right. Thank you.
I'm happy to.
Okay, well, I look forward to seeing all of you in person in December. And we got a couple of our speakers here. Doug is one of our speakers in December, and Mark, and they're both in here today. And we look forward to having our next program. Thanks a lot again, Caitlin.
Would you repeat the date of that program, please?
Okay, it's Sunday. You had to ask. Okay, I know it's the third Sunday. Sunday, December 21st at 1 o'clock at Aviva.
Thank you.
Kim, I want to thank you for including us from Venice. It was wonderful. Caitlin, you'll be getting emails, I'm sure. I'm going to send some. But we thank you, and hopefully we can do more things together, and then we'll go off on our own as well. It's nice to meet all of you who joined today.
And
thanks for coming, Robin.
Yeah, and send me an email too. We're happy to do what we can.
Thank you very much.
Anything else?
Thank you.
This